Hey, welcome back. It's NukaViolet here. After getting my first DSLR camera, one of the places that I would always go to take pictures was the Botanical Gardens. So for my next build, I thought it would be neat to try to replicate this after years of abandonment. What would it look like when all the plants took over the building? The Botanic Garden that I would go to was located in Washington, D.C., right in the middle of the city. So I decided to build my version right outside of Morgantown. I drew inspiration from the main building, but I didn't want to copy it directly. You can actually build here in adventure mode. The only difference is you can't quite go as far back as I did in custom worlds. This build is max budget, but I really feel like I could have used at least triple the amount of space. I wanted to create these different sections, really similar to the one in DC where they have a tropical section and even a desert area. But I blew through my budget pretty fast, so I had to pick and choose what I thought was going to be the most important to show. I get that question quite frequently about how I can fit so much into the budget, and it basically comes down to building and deleting until I finally get something that I'm happy with. I really love the look of these iron doors. I thought they were the perfect fit because they already have that patina look, like they've been there for a really long time. Right when you walk in, you see the front desk on the left and then multiple directions to the different sections. To make this build seem old and dilapidated, I wanted to use materials that looked worn out and neglected. So I ended up using the weathered wood floors and also the destroyed porches. This created an excellent foundation for my build. From there, I selected items that I thought would work well in this environment, like this weathered bench and these pots that have dirt on the bottom. Throughout this entire build, you'll see that I used a lot of those food-based plants that we have. Those ones work really well because they have a more realistic color to them. I noticed that the ones that we have in-game that you can purchase are this bright green color. Now that's great for new growth, but if you think about it, this is a neglected building and no one is watering the plants. So more than likely, a lot of these plants would just be dead. All the plants have taken over this entire place, so it was imperative that I put a lot of plants on top of the signage. Since no one is here to maintain everything and cut it back, a lot of the plants would grow through the floors, over top of things, and through things. So I made sure that this build had a lot of that going on. If you sink this fall wreath into another object so you only see part of it, it kind of looks like a dead plant. So I used this technique a few times throughout the build. Since we only have a few plants to choose from, I had to rotate and position them in ways that would make it look like they weren't the same plants being used over and over again. Another technique I use is merging the terrain in with the foundations. This will always give your build a more immersive look. A big portion of my budget, besides the plants, was actually using a bunch of different building materials. For example, I used this roof piece and sunk it down into the floor so that only sections of it were sticking out. I also used a lot of those 1/4 and 1/2 upper floor pieces that have the wood planks. After you go through the walkway, you're in the center of the build. I wanted the focal point to be this water fountain. And after years of neglect, this roof started to fall down. So I purposely placed roof pieces on top of the fountain. When I was placing the vines, I was really wishing that we had another variant, something that would just cover with a couple strands instead of a square. Maybe even having a version of different colors and something that has flowers on it. A detail that I thought would be interesting was making this car look like it crashed into the greenhouse. Since we can't really shatter the glass, I just made this part open. I layered another roof piece into the foundation right here to add a little bit more texture to the build. To create more emphasis on this fountain, I placed the foundations around it in a circle. And I didn't want it to be all one level, so I stacked them to make some steps. I also angled them a little bit in certain locations to create cracks where plants could grow through. I didn't want this back wall to just be plain and boring, so I used the foundations to create a custom tropical section. I spent a lot of time back here layering the plants to make it seem more realistic, including using that wreath again to make it look like some plants died and are just hanging over the edge. Since this is the tropical section, I needed to have a water source. So I placed this faucet into the wall to make it look like it was built in. I thought the foundation walls were getting a little bit too repetitive, so I used one of the defense walls to break up that pattern. To make this build match the Fallout universe even more, I decided to make a radioactive courtyard. I merged a bunch of the ultracite shards together along with the meteorites to make it look a little bit more organic. To give them more of an impact, I shined a red light on them. You can unlock this light for free by doing the pit missions. I love it because it's super bright and it illuminates a large area. So instead of taking up more budget with multiple lights, you only need one. I had so much fun building this that I already have ideas for a version 2. If you'd like to support my channel, don't forget to check out my website at thegraphicschick.com. That's where I sell a lot of my Fallout inspired artwork. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one.